Hey everyone, Chris G from Computer Stuff. Today we wanted to do a slightly fun, maybe even slightly educational video. I know that's not the norm for us, but in any event, we thought it would be fun to pluck an old 2009 MacBook Pro from the graveyard and see if you can get an old computer to, well, to work really. So, unfortunately, planned obsolescence is a pretty serious thing where, Apple wants you to buy new computers. So after a few years, they make the software and hardware kind of slowly degrade itself until you're sort of forced into buying a new machine. But what we wanted to find out today was if you can take an old computer and maybe revive it or modernize it slightly. The idea being is that maybe you don't have to throw this thing into a landfill, or maybe you can give it to a child or somebody who's less fortunate, or just somebody that needs a spare laptop hanging around. There's any number of reasons why you may want to get an old laptop going. So here we have a 13-inch 2009 MacBook running Mac OS Leopard. Now what you'll find is that with Mac OS Leopard is that you can't really do all that much. So if you open up the internet, and you can actually get this thing connected to most modern Wi-Fi's, but if you open up the internet, sure, it will open up Apple and Google and a couple of other sort of main sites like that, but the problem is that the web languages on most websites not only have different security certificates, but they also run HTML5, other modern web languages to where an old browser such as Safari, let's see what version of Safari this is, such as Safari 5.0, they will no longer work. And the problem is that if you try to download a modern browser like Firefox or Chrome onto this thing, well, of course, it's just not going to function at all. So here, if we click on, we've already done the heavy work. We've opened up, we'll open up a Chrome DMG here. You'll notice that it's got this beautiful white X in it, indicating that your machine is just too much of an antique for us to run our modern software. So, okay, not a big deal. What do? We upgrade this thing to the latest operating system. Now, if I'm not mistaken, the 2009 MacBook Pro can run all the way up to Mac El Capitan. But it's not as easy as just putting an El Capitan installer on here and putting on the latest OS. Unfortunately, Mac OS Leopard has a different architecture, so you have to do sequential upgrades, meaning you've got to go to Snow Leopard first before you can go to the more modern updates. But the problem is when you try to install Snow Leopard on here, if you hit that and open, and you go through this whole rigmarole to install Mac OS X, disk utility needs a DVD, blah, 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 blah. Snow Leopard cannot do an in-place upgrade where the installer is on the same drive that you want to install the OS on. In other words, you can't just have a DMG file of Snow Leopard on here and expect it to upgrade. You have to have either a DVD or a USB thumb drive to install it on. Most people don't have a Snow Leopard CD hanging around anymore. We actually did have one at one time, but it either got lost or thrown out. So that leaves us with having to put this thing onto a thumb drive. Well, to do that, you need to make a bootable USB thumb drive, and we'll go ahead and show you how to do that now. Now, if your thumb drive is compatible in disk utility, it is going to show up in this little left menu pane here. So in this case, we've got the SanDisk Ultra. What you want to do just for good measure is you hit erase and then you format it under macOS Extended Journal. Once that is complete, what you want to do is you want to come up to File, Open Disk Image, and then go to Snow Leopard ISO, open that up. It will pop open in the left side here, and you select the Mac OS X install DVD image that's underneath the ISO. You click the Restore button, drag this image over here, you drag whatever your USB thumb drive is over to destination, you check off Erase Destination, and then you hit Restore. And then after about 20 minutes, it should go ahead and restore the image to this thumb drive. Now for sake of time, we already went ahead and did that. So that's why it's called Mac OS X Install DVD. So once that's done and it is completed, the USB thumb drive will automatically mount. Now before we actually get started in the Snow Leopard installation, I do want to talk about some kind of fun, or just show some sort of fun sort of relics with old Mac OS Leopard. For starters, you had the old version of, we have Dashboard on here, which you don't really have anymore. Yeah, that's not a thing on the latest operating systems. You had the old iChat, you had like old QuickTime Player, and this was at a time where they wanted you to actually pay for QuickTime Player Pro. So if we like open up QuickTime Player here, and we go to like File, you see like the Pro version is the only thing that allows you to do like movie recordings and exporting to the web and all that kind of stuff. Get connected to the internet for your guide to the best QuickTime content. Funny thing is I am connected to the internet. Still ain't working. It looks like Apple must have removed removed that URL. See what happens if you hit the registration option. Buy QuickTime Pro. Can't even find the site. Apple got rid of it. That's a shame. I don't know. There's just a couple of other little fun things too. Came with, I think, like iWeb. See what other sort of apps came on here. Yeah, iWeb, which was an old website maker. I doubt any website would even be compatible with that. So yeah, that is the old Mac OS Leopard. Let's go ahead and get this thing on Snow Leopard, shall we? So go ahead, pop this in. We hit install Mac OS X install DVD. Even though it's not a DVD, it's a thumb drive. Hit install Mac OS X. We hit continue, agree. It's gonna be installed here, okay, and install. Are you sure you want to install Mac OS X Leopard? Yes. Rock and roll. So this is going to take about 45 minutes, so basically we will be back as soon as Mac OS Snow Leopard is installed, and we're going to see what kind of changes came with it. All right, so Mac OS Snow Leopard finished up. By the way, one thing I missed about the old Mac OS X versions was the old like boot up thing where it was like the doo-doo-doo-doo. Here it comes. That's always how you knew a brand new operating system was installed. This would drive every Genius Bar tech absolutely insane, having to listen to this like 1,000 times. Just, you gotta admit, it's got a ring to it. Thank you for installing OS Snow Leopard. It doesn't say that, it just says thank you. All right, continue. We come up here to the little apple, we click About This Mac. We now see that we have Mac OS version 10.6. Now the thing is that Mac OS X Snow Leopard was largely the identical operating system to Leopard in terms of like looks and functionality. You'll notice that all of the same old icons are still there at the bottom. If we click Safari open here, it's actually, how did we go down a version? How did we start with Safari 5 and then go to Safari 4? That must be a weird thing with having an update, like having like Mac Update Safari standalone. Anyway, but Snow Leopard really tried to just capitalize on improving Leopard, getting rid of bugs, things like that, but also in introducing 64-bit application support. And then of course eventually Mac moved over to having just full native 64-bit without any 32-bit support at all, so with the exception of like Rosetta and some other stuff. But anyway, you'll notice though, largely it is the same operating system. Now, the thing is though, is that I believe you still cannot go to Lion, for example, because you have to do another sequential upgrade. So for example, if we hit the Lion Mac, or install Mac OS X Lion thing, by the way, software update is running in the background, we'll let it do its thing there, and we hit install Mac OS X, we get that same error message, cannot open. The reason why is because you have to go to Mac OS version 10.6.5 or something like that. So it says it's checking for new software. Let's go ahead and see if it actually finds on Apple servers, if it finds the latest version of Snow Leopard. Because again, our build number here is 10.6, so that's like the earliest version of Snow Leopard. So let's show the details. What do we got here? Got an update to Airport Utility, some printer softwares, iPhone SDK. Man, I could probably plug in an old iPhone 1 on this thing. See how that goes. And then you have you got Mac OS 10.6.8. So we're just going to go ahead and skip all this other stuff here and then say install that one item. It's only 1.9 gigs. You must restart. Okay. We're just going to go ahead and do that now. So yeah, it's going to run, it's going to do its thing, and it's going to install the latest version of Snow Leopard 10.6.8, and then from there, we should be able to install Lion and then go to El Capitan. So we're going to go ahead and cut cameras, and then we'll be back as soon as that is finished. All right, so we're almost finished here with the Snow Leopard 10.6.8 upgrade. A couple of things. I miss the old candy bar looking scroll bars and loading bars in the old versions of Mac OS. I forgot what they called that, but Steve Jobs once said that he wanted it to look like, that he wanted it to look in such a way that you would want to lick your screen. So basically making it look like candy or something like that. So I don't know. There's some old Macisms that I really miss. Also, windows would be a lot dimmer in color when they weren't the active window, unlike in the new Mac Ventura where it's almost impossible to tell the difference between an active and an inactive window. Some other things I didn't go over too was that macOS Snow Leopard also dropped PowerPC support, and in a not so distant future, we will probably be dropping Intel support in the Mac world. And it was also Mac's first operating system to introduce QuickTime Pro 10, as well as rewriting the entire Finder in their new Cocoa language, which at the time was obviously a huge breakthrough for them. A couple of other little small goodies too, but suffice to say, Snow Leopard was a pretty decent little upgrade back in the day. I'd like to point out, by the way, that this computer was actually pretty decently fast. It navigated around Mac OS X Leopard like, frankly, for a computer with a 13-year-old hard drive in it, I mean, it did pretty darn good navigating around. So hopefully as we keep progressing with these operating systems, it doesn't slow it down too much. That will be something that we will sort of test and discuss once we finally get to El Capitan. All right, so we're back up and running. We are loaded into OS X 10.6.8. Just kind of confirm that here. Good to go there. Software update ran in the background. It's got a couple of goodies queued up for us too. Let's go ahead and check Safari's version number because I'm kind of just a little bit curious what version is on there now. Because I don't know, I'm unaware if there is a, yeah, so back to 5.0.5. That is strange. So we are on the latest version of Snow Leopard now, I think. I think 10.6.8 was the last one. We'll verify that here in just a moment. But here, let's hit show details. Let's see here. There's a lot of updates here. All kinds of security and software and functionality stuff. Lucky for us, we don't need to do any of that. What I have noticed, however, is the El Capitan icon is open for business. Looks like we could, in theory, run that bad boy. They also introduced the App Store finally, so that was kind of cool. We've got the App Store in here now. Most of the applications are all still pretty much the same. Let's go ahead and pop open QuickTime just for poops and giggles and see what's there. Definitely an updated icon, and got rid of all of the Pro related stuff that you needed to get. And yep, QuickTime Player 10. So kind of cool. But let's go ahead and open the El Capitan icon. Run! Mac OS X El Capitan. Are you all ready for this? Should we even bother going from Snow Leopard to El Capitan? The answer is yes, because we don't even have iCloud on here. This is still mobile me, which is pretty crazy. So I do think we need to go to El Capitan. Or should we do Lion first? Let's do Lion first, because I want to see what kind of goodies are still in Lion. And for that matter, if we have the fun little jingle still around in Mac OS X Lion. So I'm gonna hit install Mac OS X. Came with this, okay. Select where you want to install it. It's got to examine all the additional disks. I hated it when it had to do this back then. All right. Yeah, continue. Standard install, installation failed. Uh-oh. Am I going to be lazy? I'm just going to have to go right to El Capitan, or should I go ahead and try to find a Lion installer? Why is that not working? Might have to cut the camera here while I investigate. By the way, that Google Chrome, the new version of Google Chrome, still doesn't work. Still not available in the latest version of Snow Leopard. All right, so I was able to find a Mac OS X Lion from Apple's website. I will link in the description below where you can find that. Once you have that downloaded onto like a thumb drive or something, move it on over to the new Mac. You want to do a couple of things. First and foremost, you want to cut the Wi-Fi off. You then also want to go to the date and time, and I've already rolled it back, but what you'll want to do is, obviously, as of this video, it is 2022. Roll the date back to 2014. All Mac OS X's probably from like Snow Leopard and on, even Catalina, High Sierra, some of those more modern ones, have this weird security thing where if you try to run the installer and it's anything later than like 2014 for Lion, you know, with Catalina it's like 2017, you get the idea. If you try to go any date beyond that, it won't work. It tries to phone home to Apple, it won't verify, and they don't let you proceed. I don't really know why Apple does that. I'm guessing they don't want you to install these old operating systems on new computers. Fact is, though, is that you can kind of trick it anyway, so whatever. So either way, once you run that little DMG file, basically you just click on Install Mac OS X DMG, you run the little installer package, and it will put the Install Mac OS X Lion into the Applications folder. Now, I've already done this for Lion and Yosemite. As far as Yosemite is concerned, I'm not sure if we'll install that. I'll kind of mull that one over as Lion's going. But we're gonna go ahead and hit Mac OS X Lion, agree, blah, 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 agree. Where do you want to install it? Here, install, yes. And it's gonna move right along and do its thing. And basically we'll find out how Mac OS X Lion is, what kind of changes they made between it and Snow Leopard. What I'd love to find out is if Lion in and of itself is capable of doing kind of like modern stuff, like, you know, if you can use like the latest version of Chrome and Firefox, and if you know, even their version of Safari has some more modern web compatibility in it. So we'll find that out and see how it is, and also kind of see how it affects the performance of the machine. But so far we're on a pretty good track of making this old little 2009 MacBook a decent little usable machine. So we will turn the cameras back on as soon as we've got this update wrapped up and go from there. All right, so we are in Mac OS X Lion. Unfortunately, there was a kind of cool little prompt that came on the screen right as it started up that I didn't get on camera, but it said set up Mac OS X, and it gave you a little prompt instructing you on a tutorial on how to use the multi-gesture trackpad. Now, I remember being in Virginia Tech at the time and getting a notebook that had, I think, Snow Leopard on it. It was a MacBook Pro with Snow Leopard, and those machines were just being announced with the multi-gesture trackpad. So then I guess they must have released like a Lion update that then had that baked in there. So that was kind of cool. But in any event, yeah, this is basically when Apple started introducing the multi-gesture support. Obviously, some of the older trackpads were compatible with at least like two. Well, it would have been 4 fingers too, because if I do the 4-finger swipe here, you know, the whole Launchpad comes on screen. Speaking of Launchpad, if you open this up, it still has the old fabric, you know, like background for the folder, which, man, I don't know, I kind of miss some of those things. But in any event, running 10.7.5. Safari is running version 5.1.7. If we turn Wi-Fi on, all right, so if we go to apple.com, this is loading up okay. We're gonna go to our website just for giggles and to see if there's some other stuff. YouTube. Let's see if YouTube works. Let's see if our site works. Let's minimize that for a second. Software update wise, if we open up system preferences, software updates, check now. See whatever it comes up with. By the way, Google Chrome and Firefox, the installers still want you to download the latest version of Mac. Cannot run on Lion. Oh well, kind of a shame. We are gonna go to Yosemite instead of going directly to El Capitan, again, just to kind of keep these stages going. But I will say that this computer is still running pretty snappy. Again, old computer, getting a little bit more updated in terms of the OS. It's kind of neat. I'm gonna go to show all. We're gonna go to iCloud here, and we're gonna see if we can sign into iCloud. Something tells me that we will not be able to. Unrecognized Apple ID and password. All right, here's software updates really quick. Bunch of things in here, some little security patches, airport utility, migration assistant update, Mac Store update. Nothing really that profound. The Mac Store update would probably let us see maybe whatever's in the Mac App Store, because as far as I'm aware, App Store is not gonna work. If we open that up, see what it says. Oh, okay, it does open up, and there is a Ventura thing in there too, so that's kind of cool. Let's try it one more time. So you may not be able to log in with this old arse version of iCloud. We'll try it one more time here, see what it does. Oh my God, wait, actually, it is letting you. Apple Maker is required. I see it being prompted on my other computer. Well, let me do it. It does not appear to. So even though it did send up a thing on my other computer. Okay, type the following password followed by the verification code shown on your other devices. Well, I already did. I've got the little code. It's on the watch, got the little code. Does not seem to want to let you do it. We're gonna try one more time just for poops and giggles, but the little password or the little number thing does not show up. So, okay, well that's fine, whatever. If we go back to Safari though, Apple's site is opening. Ours is, well, not looking too good. Yep, continue. It's probably gonna be some SSL certificate issues with all these websites. YouTube looks like it's kind of suffering too. They want to load, they just can't do it. So again, HTML5 problem, but you can't update the browser anyway because you got to go to the new version. So, all right, let's go ahead and do El Capitan. I'm sorry, Yosemite. Turn Wi-Fi off. Go to System Preferences, iChat. Let's check iChat really quick. QuickTime Player. iChat still allows you to do AIM, Mac.com, Jabber, Google Talk, all that stuff. QuickTime Player is version 10.7.5. Context menus are black with the opaque backgrounds. I think that's kind of cool. I got rid of that too. So yeah, some neat stuff here. Just classic Mac OS X. Let's go to El Capitan. Date and time. I'm gonna roll this thing back to 2019, which we should need for Yosemite. Let's click on OS X Yosemite. Boom. And I'm gonna put a link in the description for a Yosemite download as well, install, rock and roll. So yeah, basically we will be back as soon as Yosemite installs. We will not have our little Mac OS X introduction video, the little do-do-do-do-do. They did get rid of that. It's kind of a shame, but we'll see if Yosemite did anything fun. And then otherwise, we will wrap it up on El Capitan. So there's that, be back soon. All right, so our Yosemite is finally finished, and we are on, according to About This Mac, we are on Yosemite 10.10.5. We're gonna do software updates just to see if there's anything that it can load up before we run over to El Capitan. Let's pop on the Wi-Fi here really quick. Right off the bat, there are an enormous amount of graphical changes that I'd like to discuss. Now this makes sense because we skipped, I think, kind of a few steps. Like we skipped, Mountain Lion, a couple others. But if we go to, first off, dashboard is still here, so that's kind of funny. I know they eventually ripped that out. I forgot when. Launchpad, though, has the new updated modern interface. Everything's kind of flat, one color, nothing crazy. Time Machine, new icons. You've got the rounded Safari icon. By all accounts, let's see about this Mac, or Safari, we are on version 8. By all accounts, we are now finally on a version of Mac OS that is probably usable. We're gonna have to bump the time for the SSLs. We're gonna have to bump the date and time back to 2022. But we are at a version of Mac OS that I think is probably pretty usable at this point. I feel like we could probably even fire up like iCloud in here and it would do its thing. So that's kind of neat. Yeah, I mean, this is now a modern Mac. This is where they also got rid of the Photos app, or it might have been before then, but now you have, instead of iPhoto, you have Photos. Man, I remember back when that was like first a thing and Apple tried to do automatic migration from iPhoto to Photos. That was a disaster. So many people lost tons and tons of pictures and images and things. That was just really, really bad stuff. For whatever reason, web pages are still, I don't know if it's the computer or what, still having a little bit of trouble loading up here. Let's see if Google Chrome is installable here. By the way, I would like to point out that things have started to kind of slow, still not installable, interesting. Things have started to kind of slow down a little bit. It is not quite as snappy as it was, but it is definitely not heinous. And if you were to put a solid state drive in here, I think there would be no problem at all with the performance on this computer, certainly as a basic laptop, but you really don't need it. Firefox not available either, Chrome not available, Safari, let's open that up again. YouTube, our website, and apple.com are all kind of struggling. I don't know why that is, because the date and time are up and running. Is this still an HTML5 thing? I'm thinking it's just still too old. So that's fine. Messages, iChat is now Messages. I mean, this is really where Apple started modernizing it, and it became kind of like what we know today with Monterey and Ventura, that kind of stuff. Let's see if I can sign into iCloud just for giggles. So we're going to bust open system preferences, iCloud. It looks like iCloud is going to let us log in. So that is pretty awesome. Do you want to use Find My Mac, use Safari, etc. and so forth? You know what? Yes, let's just go ahead and hit next, let it do its thing. We officially have an old MacBook. It won't even tell you what it is in the about this Mac, but we have an old MacBook, 3 gigabytes of RAM, 2.4 gigahertz Intel Core 2 Duo, running OS X Yosemite. That is pretty fabulous. Not really much more to look at. Kind of got a flat modern interface. We are just going to blast right on over to El Capitan and then see if that allows us to finally install some of the modern browsers and stuff like that to make this what I would consider a fully functioning computer. And then of course we are also going to see how that affects performance in addition to that. And then maybe if we're feeling a little squirrely, we might end up doing a solid state drive in this thing just to kind of, you know, see how it does. So anyway, we will be back as soon as El Capitan is finished installing. All right, so we are officially finished with our El Capitan update. If we go to About This Mac, I will say this computer is slowed down a little bit. Again, nothing like too crazy. It's definitely usable and, you know, functional in the sense that, like, I mean, yeah, it might have some higher loading times, but again, somebody that may not have a computer otherwise could really benefit from this. 10.11.6, latest version of El Capitan. If we do software updates, nothing pops up. One kind of annoying or sad thing is that if we go to Google Chrome's installer, or for that matter Firefox's, you are still not able to install the latest versions of those programs. They're just not compatible. So we have to rely on HTML5, or rather we have to rely on Safari in order to give us all the HTML5 and modern web support. Everything else is functioning just fine. iCloud's connected, iCloud Drive, all that stuff, that's all working no problem. But let's go ahead and pop open Safari here. We are on version 11, and we're gonna go ahead and see if this can, if it's compatible with all of the latest websites. I'm gonna just make sure the date and time is correct for all the SSLs. It is. Okay, so if we go to Safari, hit About Safari, 11.1.2. Let's go to youtube.com, go to apple.com, we'll go to our website as well. We'll see what these things do. Everything else on here, you know, it's pretty modernized. I mean, it's got most of Mac's latest softwares. You've got messages, you know, you got calendars, contacts, time machine, all the updated icons. If we click on Launchpad, got all the latest, you know, looking, you know, interface guidelines and stuff from Apple. So that's pretty cool. Let's see, youtube.com. It's opening up. It's a little bit clunky, a little bit slow, but it is opening. Getting that little spinning beach ball. I feel like if we put a solid state drive in here, that would really, really speed things up. Solid state drives these days are going for, you know, 50 bucks for like a 256. So, you know, you could really modernize this thing out for 50 bucks. All the other stuff is free. That's pretty cool. Apple's website is working, functioning the way it should be. Our website, let's check that out, is not loaded yet, but it's whatever. Anyway, the stuff that's important is functioning. Let's go ahead and just click on a random YouTube video, let it load up. I do wish that you could put a more modern browser on here, but oh well, I mean, what you gonna do? But nevertheless, once we get this YouTube video going, well, that will sort of be our confirmation. Moral of the story is, can you take a 2009 MacBook Pro and upgrade it to make it a functional computer? And the answer is yes, with maybe some small caveats. Again, for speed, you might want to go ahead and get a solid state drive in there. But ultimately, if you just need a computer that can do some random things like a little bit of, yep, there's the audio, that's all working fine. But you just need a modern or a computer that can do like some Word documents, maybe some emails, that kind of stuff, then frankly, I think that you are probably, you know, I think you're probably more than okay with using this. What we are going to do, by the way, after this video is we are going to put a solid state drive into this computer. We're just going to clone the drive so everything that we did just transfers over, and then we are going to donate it. I think that this computer will be absolutely more than adequate for somebody that, again, less fortunate or doesn't have a computer, just needs something basic, preventing this thing from going into a landfill unnecessarily. So yes, you can only go up to El Capitan. Your functionality is limited. It's maybe not the fastest thing in the world, but it is absolutely perfect for a little basic machine. And frankly, it is a heck of a lot better than the worst laptop in the world that we reviewed a few months ago. So, and I'll link that in the description as well. So yeah, I think this was kind of a fun little experiment, a fun little project. We hope that you all enjoyed watching watching the evolution of Mac OS on this old computer. And if you have any questions, comments, or anything like that, feel free to reach out to us in the comment section. And otherwise, we will be back with another video really soon.